Días de Vino y Radio, un programa presentado por Gabriel Ruiz Lopez para todos los amantes del vino, agricultores, enólogos, sommeliers, bodegueros, comerciantes, restauradores, periodistas, conectando directamente desde Barcelona, España.
Thank you, Patricia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the point of the planet you are. Today, we will travel through the cradle of wine, the land where the human being discovered how to make wine with this fruit, the grape that the land gives us. And this place is Armenia. We will travel with Nairy Chaglasian, who will explain us about history, which is very long and interesting, but also about modern winemaking and the winery she represents. It's Armenia Wine Company. Hi, Nairy, how are you?
Hello, Gabi. Hello, nice to see you, nice to hear you, and good afternoon, or hello, greetings to all the listeners out there.
Okay. Well, I made this short introduction, but to start, I always ask the guest to explain about him or herself and how arrived Nairy to the wine and what is your trajectory on it till now.
It's a question I actually haven't asked myself because it feels like wine has been a part of my life forever. But I was thinking about this and I'm like, I think it all started when we were kids, babies. In Armenia, your grandmother puts a little bit of brandy or cognac into your tea to, get rid of your tummy ache or whatever. All the kids in Armenia grew up with this. And I'm thinking maybe that was the start. Brandy is sort of a fortified wine. Mm-hmm. But no, possibly. Of course, grape is part of our culture and our upbringing, and it's a southern country. But I grew up I was born in Armenia, in Yerevan, but I was raised in Los Angeles. We moved when I was a kid. So, of course, California is also another wine country. Although I was, in college kid, we weren't drinking Napa wines, but it was the cheap, I think it was the Chilean Gato Negro or something like this, what we can afford as students. Mm-hmm. But of course, I like wine. We had wine with food at home, and so it was part of our everyday habit. But and of course, again, becoming a young adult in California, you always, in a wine bar or in a bar, it'd be a Chardonnay or Sauvignon Blanc. That was my introduction to wine, or Cabernet or Merlot. These were the way wines were classified in America. This is the 80s. Long story short, to start working in the trade, I love wine. I've always loved wine. It was my drink of choice, maybe since I started drinking officially. But my work in the wine sector started probably about 15 years ago when I moved to Spain. I married a Spaniard, and I moved to Spain. And I was at the time, I've always worked in international trade. I studied international relations at my university, at the University of Southern California. Mm-hmm. So, but I was working in trade always, and because of my knowledge of the Russian, I spoke Russian fluently at that time. This is late 80s, early 90s. There was a huge demand for people with such expertise geared to the Russian markets. Everybody wanted to enter this market. So I did commodities trading, started with that. This is mid 90s. I worked in Moscow, sourcing non-ferrous minerals and metals. So anyway, it was always international trade connected to East Europe and Russia. And when I moved to Spain, eventually, I answered an ad in a paper. They asked for an English fluent person in an export trading company. I said, okay, let me see if it was an info job or something like this. I had an interview. It was a small boutique export company. They were working with small wineries, group of wineries for opening export markets. Mm-hmm. And that's how my professional career in wine began. It was quite accidental. They asked me my favorite grape. I told them, and I think that was the only grape question they asked. In fact, I think this is, this is not late in, well, probably 2006. I don't know, 2007, when we also a little bit collaborated, coincided with you. I remember, with some of the wineries in. Yeah, around there, I remember Gap Wine and the project that we had, this incredible tasting in Barcelona with cheese and all these gourmet products you had done, and music. Yeah. There's this thing, synergy of wine, food, music. For me, this is, the pleasures of life. So, so that was how it started. Sorry, it's a long answer. And then from then on, I moved on. I started working independently with some wineries. Consulting them for export, opening markets for them. And then I moved to another end of the spectrum, which one of the biggest wineries in the world, huge export group with, 10 wineries. And I managed for them Eastern European and Russian markets for, I think, about 6 years. Yeah. And then life, another project, another page in our history. Every project is, every experience of life is a project. Being an Armenian and being really excited by this renaissance of winemaking in my homeland, which I actually haven't, been to for a while. And also, we're all connected. All the Armenians all over the world I feel very connected to our land. But I wanted to also use my expertise and my knowledge and my contacts and network to help talk about, help publicize the fact that there's winemaking in Armenia, and it's not only historical ancient cradle, but it's making fantastic wines now. And so that was 2016. So, that was my move to Armenia. And again, accidentally, coincidentally, I think it was ProWine. I met the owners. Another contact, a client came and said, "Hey, you're Armenian, he's Armenian. Talk about what you can do." And I was ready to make a change as well. And over a glass of bubbly, some sparkling wine, some cava, in fact, it was. We discussed how about representing Armenia Wine Company. It didn't happen immediately. It took a couple of years, but then I made the jump, and that was my beginning of connection, coming back home, to Armenia and promoting Armenian wines. I don't know. Did I answer your question? Long question, long answer.
No, because it's quite interesting. How did you get to here? And one part of the answer was about the connection between Armenian outside Armenia, but my question is, there are more Armenians in Armenia or outside Armenia?
No, in fact, no. In Armenia, a lot of people do not even know, where is Armenia, who we are, where is it, nothing about Armenia. It's a small landlocked country. It's on the, I think, crossroads of East and West Asia and Europe. I think most Armenians feel themselves European. And of course, the historic Armenian or the modern Armenia is a tiny part of our historic Armenia. But at the present, there's, the numbers vary, but it's about 2 million to 3 million population in Armenia proper, and the country in Caucasus, between Georgia, Azerbaijan, Iran. So we're a landlocked country, small country. It's only about 30,000 square meters. It's teeny compared to Spain, which is, I think, 500,000 square meters. It's like 17 times smaller. It's teeny little country, but they don't want to leave us alone. Our neighbors are constantly looking for more land. We just had a very tragic, in fact, occurrence a few months ago, but we won't go into that now. Yeah. So that's Armenia, and constant upheaval and difficult history, Armenians would take the road to immigration. This has happened periodically through history. Armenians were always known as traders. They would amazing artisans. There is a lot of cultural heritage. So Armenians would do well everywhere. They would go away as far as to Singapore, in India, and Venice, and not to speak of all of Europe. and start again, and away from persecution. We're a Christian country, Christian minority in, well, the Middle East, let's say, or Asia, so we're persecuted for this. So Armenians would go and start again. In the US, there's a huge diaspora. In France, if you think about a huge diaspora. In Canada, I mean, they're more modern diasporas, but they're ancient diasporas from, traders in, from Venice to, again, I said India and Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So I think overall the numbers are about 10 million all over the world, and about 2 million, let's say, in Armenia. So the newest diaspora is the Russian diaspora because of economic immigration, post-Soviet or Soviet immigration.
Mm-hmm.
That was already not persecution of, as a, let's say, a Christian minority. Mm-hmm. Or genocidal tendencies of our neighbors, but because people looking for better life for their children. Mm-hmm. And that includes my children were in 82. My parents moved, let's say, emigrated to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And started again from zero, although we lived a very prosperous life. We were in a privileged, let's say, class. Mm-hmm. But they wanted a better life for their children, wanted to live in a democratic country. They wanted us to have a, say in our future. And so I'm grateful for them for that.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the wine. And first, I would like to talk about the ancient history. Mm-hmm. We have to go to the Bible, I think. Find the first... quotes about the wine in Armenia, no?
Yes, I mean, even I think people who are not Christian or do not practice, let's say, the dogma. We've heard of, all of us have heard of Mount Ararat. Mm-hmm. And Noah, and we say Noah was the first Armenian because after the flood, the ark landed on Mount Ararat, and Ararat for us is like Mount Fuji for the Japanese. It's our sacred mount, which is beautiful, and you should. It's an amazing sight, and for Armenians, especially coming back and seeing it from the plane window when you're landing, you will get goosebumps, and it's really indescribable. I'm getting goosebumps as we speak. We have this connection to our mount, which is actually now not in Armenia; it's in Turkey, or we call it Western Armenia. This is becoming anyway too political, this conversation, but I'll go back to wine. So Noah planted the first vines in the valley of Ararat. So in fact, we think, people, the Bible is a legend, it's a myth, this and that. But in fact, scientists have proven that actually this is true, because the first full cycle winery has been discovered in Armenia. It's the Areni Cave 1, and is actually, they're all the neighboring countries, as we know, as Georgia, it's also Turkey, they said, it's here. And I don't want to get into that discussion. It's really irrelevant. This is the birthplace of wine in this region. In Areni, they have found the first full cycle winery from, vats. People would stomp with their feet, with connection to the storage area, etc., and the seeds of the grapes that are actually now being still making wine from the same varietal. So it's this is dating back 6,000 years. It's 6,000 vintages. It's really incredible.
Yeah,
I think. So it was always a part of our history, always our culture. There's a lot of old ancient historians from Strabo and Herodotus who talk about Armenians trading down to the Assyrians, down to Tigris River with their vats of wine. And actually, wine is represented in all our reliefs of our churches. Grapes, it's a motif. It's a sacred. Grapes and pomegranates literally are symbols of our country. And of course, wine also being used in worship. It's always been part of culture in Armenia and this, there's a lot of data, historical. If anybody's interested, there's a lot of information out there. Maybe people will remember seeing a few years back a huge article that was very popular about the oldest shoe found in a cave. I don't know if you remember seeing this, Gabi. Anyway, it's the same cave that this winery was found. So this was a developed civilization. You know, they were wearing shoes, they were drinking wine.
They were making the wine in amphoras, like in your neighborhood.
Were used for storage. There's also another excavation point. I think it's Yerablush. I don't remember exactly the name now. No, sorry, not Yerablush. I'm so sorry. It's got anyway, there's another excavation site where the amphora are found, and thousands and actually in good condition. I can check on the name. I don't remember, to be honest, right now. But the amphora, you know, if you're asking about the vinification process or making the wines in qvevri like the Georgians do, different idea. I mean, in Georgia, it's part of the winemaking. It's sort of, you know, the so-called orange wines or the natural wines when everything is fermented together. This is not the way, as I understand. I mean, we go and figure out how it was made, whatever, 6,000 years ago. But now in Armenia, we're not using qvevri like the Georgians do. There are some boutique or individual producers who are experimenting and are using let's say clay amphora, which we call karas, not qvevri, karas, K-A-R-A-S, in Armenia. And they use this for partial fermentation, or there are lots of experiments with this method. And of course, it's a very interesting also project, but this is not, let's say, the only way of winemaking in Armenia. It hasn't been also. You know, it's, I think it's a fantastic way. Yeah, sorry.
No, also in Spain, in certain areas, we used this ceramic or clay amphoras to make the fermentation in La Mancha and south of Spain and some parts. I have seen old wineries.
Sure.
They have it, so
I've seen the clays. Yeah, I've seen this amphora in Spain also. It's just, I think it was more of a method of storing. And then of course the barrels, and of course then there was all the whole, you know, in Europe, you know, the French influence on, you know, pre-phylloxera in Spanish winemaking, you know, when they learned to make barrels and move, transport and age the wines in barrels. But no, caras was of course a way to store, mainly to store the wine.
And at that time they used to do wine, no? More wine than brandy, because
no, of course this is more, of course at that time, of course, it was wine. Brandy was later. Brandy was actually, Armenia became famous for brandy production in the Soviet times. I mean, another legend, and apparently this is true, but again, I don't want to sound like a typical Armenian, which I am, that I know we're first in doing everything. But the in Soviet times, Armenia produced, I think, 30% of all of the brandy. Famous brands are Ararat, Akhtamar, for example. And Churchill loved the stuff, apparently, and he would get shipped, you know, cases and cases of this. He would demand, and apparently once, there's another anecdote, apparently once he noticed there was some changes in the flavor of the brandy he loved, and contacted Stalin. Apparently the winemaker, the brandy maker, who was making it working priorly, was sent to Siberia for some pobrecito. No, who knows what he's done, but at that time you didn't know. Somebody said you did something and you were sent to Siberia. So they brought him back. Can you imagine the luck of the guy? They brought him back so he could continue making the brandy as Mr. Churchill liked. So he was very lucky. So yes, this was a decree by Stalin, going back to history. As Soviet Union was a centralized economy, or it was top-down decision making. Georgia was, the Southern republics obviously are the ones who, cultivating grape, and Georgia, his native Georgia, he was Georgian, was left to make the wine, and Armenia was ordered to make brandy. I mean, that's why also, as you can, the markets, Georgian wine is better known. They're more organized. They've been producing wine in the Soviet times for the whole of Soviet Union and with some exports as well, but mainly Soviet Union. And Armenia was concentrating on brandy production, which meant that all the indigenous grape varietals, which are now we count about 400, which are for winemaking, were cut. Nobody needed this grape anymore. For brandy production, you need a particular grape. It's a white grape. So most of the grape or vineyards in Armenia were left for brandy making. And sadly, it was obviously its volume and it's not quality. They don't need all these native varietals. So it was a big blow for Armenian winemaking, and we lost our know-how, or also the material. And then to put, further injury was during Gorbachev's era, when he thought he's going to fight alcoholism in the Soviet Union, a big evil, by ordering the cutting down of all wines all over Soviet Union. Of course, Armenia was part of the Soviet Union, and this was the latest blow. And so pretty much the industry was distracted. There was nothing left. Mm-hmm. And I'll couple that after former, perestroika, or a new Armenia, new republic in 90. Nobody had the funds to plant. I mean, grape farming or winemaking is a very long prospect. You can't get rich. It takes time. It's a lot of effort, and to start again from not even zero, but from minus, because the varietals were lost.
This is what I wanted to ask you. You
okay.
had around 400 varieties, and how many you have lost?
Well, no, this is now they have, now there's a lot of work being done. There are a couple of state organizations. There are academics and independent groups who are trying to catalog and maintain and raise, bring back the varietals. So right now there are 400. Right now before I don't know how many there were. They have, but of course not all of them are being used commercially. There's about, probably in total, I would say about 10 varietals that are extensively, well, in Armenia's, let's say, volume, it's still very small, but are being planted or to yield the grapes. And out of them, there are a couple of that are more, let's say, prevalent.
Yeah, but more or less, how many hectares there are in total in Armenia?
I'm sorry, Gabi, I lost you. Can you please repeat?
What is the surface? Sorry, the surface of vineyards. How many hectares of vineyards in Armenia total?
Oh my God, yeah, it's a good question. It's nothing compared to, having worked in Spain with the hundreds and millions, it's nothing. It's not even a drop in the ocean. But I think this is also the beauty of the whole project, because I think small is beautiful, rare is beautiful. Yeah. Totally, I don't have up-to-date figures as of, like, say, 2020 or 2021, but maybe about 100 hectares total. Wait, let me check. This is my winery. Sorry. It was 17,000 hectares. Yeah, 17,000 hectares total. Most of it is still for brandy production. Okay, so most of these grapes are bulk, farmed and sold per kilo to brandy production. So let's say one of the biggest producers, which I represent, Armenia Wine Company, which continues to plant. It has 100 hectares, So, and this is the biggest producer on vineyards. Of course, we have long-term contracts with farmers of different regions. You select some grapes depending on necessity per year, or what you want to do. We can get into that later, but the numbers are very dismal. So
Yeah, it's quite small.
This is a rare product. It's not for everybody, but we have to find a niche and get out there.
But you have several regions producing wine.
Yes. I mean, there are a few regions. There's Ararat, the valley, okay, Ararat, Armavir, Aragazotan, Vaiozor, Tavush, Sunik, and Artsakh, okay? I mean, I'm not even, and Artsakh. But most of the vineyards are in Ararat and Armavir and Aragazotan, let's say 70% of all vineyards. Vaiozor is a very high, it's a highland, which is let's say, the home of our most emblematic and most noble grape, which is Areni. And Tavush and Sunik, these are smaller vineyards, but we must remember that all of Armenia's vineyards are at least 700, 800 meters above sea level. So it's all extreme winemaking, going up to 1,500. I mean, it's all extreme winemaking, high altitude, volcanic lands, very, the climate, very harsh climate. Yeah, sorry.
No, this is what I wanted to ask you, a little bit description of landscape, terroir.
Armenia it's a highland, okay? It's a mountainous country. Not a lot of, there's no, let's say, plains or like La Mancha or steppes. It's actually very harsh land, very dry, arid. I mean, the climate is, they say it's continental, but I would say more subtropical because we get no rain. It's very arid. So we know all these stresses are good for the grape. When you have you have really hot summers, cold winters. I mean, some places in Armenia, the winter is -45. We bury the wines in fall. Yes. I mean, the normal can be, let's say, in the Ararat Valley, can go from, let's say, 25, 30 in the summer to -20. This is like more calm, but -20, the vineyards can freeze. So every year there's the work of burying the vineyards. It's a very labor-intensive work because you don't want to lose your vineyards from the frost.
What is
but
this?
This makes
is to cover the vineyard with ground?
Yes, they cover them with the ground, with earth. Every fall, you cover the vineyards. You don't prune them even. You cover them with the earth because so they don't have frostbite, so they don't suffer, and they don't. When they're frozen, then they don't revive in the spring. They freeze. It's like literally frostbite. So this is something that is being done in these extreme heights. And I don't know which other, honestly, I have no idea if any other, probably some, in some other high areas they do this, but we have to bury our wines.
I think in Russia they do in some areas.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. But Russia is not so, anyway, I don't want to comment. So I don't know, something I don't know, but in any case, this is what gets done to save the vine, the plant. And then in the spring, you clear out the earth and then you prune and that's that. So, but the most, let's say, premium or grape, and actually the most scarce is, excuse me?
If you cover totally the plant, how does the plant breathe?
Well, it's sleeping in the winter.
Sleeping?
Yes, it's sleeping. It gets enough from the snow. I mean, it's warm. I mean, it's like an igloo,
Yeah. I understood the idea of covering the plant. I wonder how the plant.
I will send you some photos. It's something actually very fascinating of this. I had made a presentation for some partners about about this, because this is quite rare, and labor intensive and
if you send me by email, I can also post
share it.
Yeah, share it.
Yes, I will.
For the people to understand.
Sure, I will. Yes, I will. I will forward it on to you.
And you said the terroir is.
So anyway,
the terroir is more volcanic, you said, no?
Yes, correct. I mean, Ararat is a volcano, for example, and it's all rocky, it's all mountainous, all the regions are mountainous, some higher altitude than others, but most of it is volcanic soil, obviously, very rich in minerals. And so of course, it's the word we love and we hate, the terroir, is very important. What is terroir? But it's yeah. So and it's also I think the winemaker's goal to try to interfere as less as possible, to make the wines represent this land, to represent this climate, to represent, I mean, somehow it's also the people and the culture, who I think, wine is a living organism. I mean, not I think, it is.
It is. I lost you, Nairy.
As I was saying, wine is a living entity, it's a living being. So the role of the winemaker, in my opinion, is to try to interfere the less possible with nature, of course, at the same time making clean, healthy, honest wines, which means, take care of the fruit in the field and help nature, get to mature the fruit with as less as possible, use of
of course,
other, pesticides, etc.
This is a general trend nowadays.
Yes.
Try to interfere.
Yes, I think it's back, back to our beginnings, or back to the future. I think people are tired of being manipulated, of having the same wine that tastes the same. Let's say the generic Chardonnay from Chile, Argentina, Spain, wherever it's like this, they think we all have this same taste buds, and we want, I mean, on one hand, that's commercialization of wine, and people, when they order Chardonnay, for example, they want to recognize it. But often this is manipulated, flavors or yeasts are added that impart particular aromas, and some people it's okay. And hopefully this, I'm not being a wine snob, and I think, start drinking wine, whatever wine, little by little you will want to ask questions. Wine is a voyage, wine, there's no end. The more we know, we realize how little we know, and it's, an immense field for everybody, from the beginner drinker to, I want people to switch from beer to wine, or drink more wine and ask questions and find what is right for you. But for me, obviously, personally, I want to taste where the wine comes from. I want to know the history of the land. I want to know who made it, how it's made, what is this grape, why does it taste like this, and anyway. And I think it's like a book, it's much more interesting to read original stories than, I don't know, regurgitated, telenovelas, so anyway.
And
I think,
going back to the characteristics of Armenia, I believe that this volcanic soil, this terroir, will help to the plant to get water, because if it's so dry as it's...
Yes, I mean, yes, the roots have to be very, the roots, of course, the more a plant is stressed, the deeper the roots have to go to get the nutrition, to get to the water. So, and of course, the yearly stress of the temperatures, the daily stress between night and day, this all stresses the plant. It's like, they say it gives less product, gives less fruit per, let's say kilos per hectare or per plant even, but what is born is of incredible quality, of intensity, of purity, and this is what we aim for. Of course, the volume producers or the volume vineyards are also for brandy. For brandy making, it is not so important, let's say, the quality of the fruit. It's all, fermented together. Anyway, it's a different process. But for wine, especially wine that Armenia has to get out there, because we will never compete in price. We will never compete in volume. but we can show some incredibly interesting, complex, nuanced wines that will speak of the earth, will speak of this land. So, and for that, you need a really top quality grape. And to do that in these circumstances, in this particular geographical as well as, well, I would even say societal challenging times, it's very interesting. So I think the fruit also, the plants also feel what happens around them.
Yeah. Well, let's go to your winery. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Well, not my winery, but we all get, I wish, no, I'm kidding. It is almost like it's mine.
The winery.
Yes, no. Yes. Armenia Wine Company. Let me give you a bit of a background. Like I said, I think in the very beginning, as all things happen, I mean, there's no accidents, but it was an accidental meeting with one of the owners of the winery in ProWine, a while back. And, the idea was like, I would love this, how interesting. But I did not imagine, what I would see. I thought, okay, it'll be like a little bodega, But no, I mean, little bodegas are fantastic. I work with them in Spain. I love their wines. But I didn't imagine what I saw, what I would see, which was really, it's physical and impossible task to import all the machinery and the equipment that was imported, really the best of the pneumatic presses, pusher from the Esperto Lasso bottling line. I mean, things I haven't seen in Spain, having worked in the top wineries. I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, these mobile pneumatic, this is amazing, so really no effort has been spared to bring the best to Armenia, to make modern wines, to make them interesting to the modern consumer. And of course, that's only one part of it. The technology is fantastic, but of course, the vineyards were planted in 2000. The first vineyards were planted in 2006, and this is Aragazoten region, which is, let's say, about half an hour drive from, from the capital, Yerevan. Mm-hmm. And they were planted 2006, but the winery itself, the building was built in 2008 in the same area. And currently, actually, so this is already, a nice period of time to have already a grape harvest. And what the winery is doing right now is concentrating on getting certification. I thought I put this on silent, but when your mother calls,
no problem.
It's on silent, and I don't know how she gets through. Excuse me. We are now planting and continue to plant vineyards. Because as I said, if total vineyard area, let's say in Armenia, 17,000, let it be 20,000 hectares now, which is still nothing. And let's say about 100 hectares are of Armenia Wine Company, and it's only for wine making. We currently have about 30 hectares of EcoCert certified biodynamic or ecological vineyard, organic vineyards, and 25 are in process of being certified. Why do I mention this? Is because I think the only way for Armenian wines to really have a competitive advantage or to get out there is because we always will remain small, no matter if we continue plant. There's not enough land in Armenia to plant vineyards. I mean, all of Armenian territory, if there was nothing else, and wine would still not be able to compete with, Spain, for example, or La Mancha. So this has to make a separate category, I think, and you have to compete with quality, uniqueness, may it be the indigenous varietals, may it be the, unique cultural heritage that is also value added, our history. We sell stories at the end, Gabi, about selling wine. It's so personal, about selling anything. I think it's very personal, and Armenia has so many of these stories to be told, and every bottle is a story. Anyway, coming back to Armenia Wine Company, my first harvest was 2016, and I was fascinated because we even did night harvest. You have this window of opportunity. For Armenia grapes, we don't have our own vineyards in Vayotzor. Vayotzor is this high mountain area. So we have long-term agreements with the farmers, and these are plot by plot, little. I mean, it's nothing like the vineyards that I've seen anywhere else. So you talk to one guy, you talk to another guy, you convince them not to do things one way, to do them. And this is a long-term project, and it's kind of frustrating because they were taught to do kilos, to do volume, and we don't want volume, we want quality. And what do you mean, green pruning? What is that? It's crazy. To somebody who has been working with Soviet, let's say, collective farming methods. So it's retraining, it's
I cannot listen.
I don't know why I'm having technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's okay. Now, yes.
Okay, sorry.
So
as you know,
they had to change their mind from the mass production to make
yes.
more
Exactly.
produce, yeah.
And also try to cultivate that. Listen, it's not from one harvest to another. We're here for the long term, so don't try to. This is good for you, for the land, for everybody, for export. But again, it's changing mentalities. It's a very harsh world, as you know, everywhere.
Everywhere.
But I mean, one interesting, I don't know, finding an advantage and a disadvantage is Armenia, as relatively poor country, landlocked. All the materials for winemaking, modern winemaking, had to be imported, including pesticides, including all the chemicals. And since it is so expensive and so prohibitive and so logistically difficult, and the farmers have no means to use fertilizers, it's all it's somehow organic from the beginning, because they don't have means to use harsh chemicals. There's just not it's money, it costs. So that's sort of an advantage. Of course, also the climate and the geography, being it's so high, it's very difficult for bugs to get to your plant. I mean, Armenia imagine we didn't have phylloxera. It's so high up and so extreme. We didn't have the phylloxera disease in Armenia until very recently, because recently, and only a couple of vineyards have been affected. Of course, this is a big danger, but because there was some uncontrolled planning, in this situation of where the state was still in its reorganization after the Soviet Union, certain individuals wanted to plant vineyards and would bring ungrafted, not controlled stock. But in general, 99% of Armenian vineyards are growing on their own rootstock. They're not grafted, which I think is another very fascinating art. This is really original wine. Original, what our ancestors drank. So
how old are the oldest vineyards you have there?
I mean, it's not that you don't have this, maybe there's some little plots that can be 100 years, 150 years old, but this is, again, a very small part because they were abandoned. It's amazing that some plants survived after it was a law by Gorbachev made it criminal to cultivate vineyards. So there are a lot of them abandoned, some were returned, but they're being planted now, and some very famous projects are the very famous winemakers, enologists are giving attention to this area in Vayotzor where Armenia is cultivated, because it's a really unique area, So Armenia Wine Company has works in Armenia with farmers, but our own vineyards are in Ararat, Armavir, and Aragatsotni. So, and where, in fact, we have also planted European varietals like Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, etc., Chardonnay, because we use this also. We have a blend that we work with in one of the lines. We can get to wines a bit later, but.
Well, and then.
Did I answer your question, Gabi? Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the agriculture is minimal intervention, try to respect.
Yes, of course, again, the smaller farmers is, I mean, pretty much naturally, de facto organic, not certified, but yes, conventional. In the bigger wineries, it's conventional. Trying to do, I mean, again, the climate helps, but of course, you have to sometimes assist the plant, especially when there are new plantings. There is drip irrigation with the new vineyards, so you control a bit better. But the idea is that eventually these plants will be, these vineyards can become also independent. Yeah.
And the harvest by hand. Harvest is by hand. No, lost you. I lost you.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm having issues.
No,
yeah.
now it's okay.
Sorry.
Now it's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes disappear the sound. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was asking about the harvest by hand or machine.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. It's it's harvested manually in little boxes. Then the boxes go to but also it depends on the wine you want to make. Often for our top premium wines, the grape is brought in cases to the winery. Often though, we also have, when we work with farmers with our, let's say, young wines or the let's say the more basic range, those wines, although they're harvested manually, let's say they bring the bucket and they dump it into the truck. Okay, they don't have the cases for example, in some areas. So it depends.
1,000 or 2,000 kilos together. Yeah.
Exactly. So
And before passing to the range of wines.
Yeah, it's pretty much everything. There's a manual selection. Let's say there are four ranges. There are a couple of the ranges that are have.
No, but before that, before talking about the ranges, I would like to know, when the grape arrives to the winery, which process do you follow?
Sorry, I skipped the part. Okay, the grapes are brought into the winery. We have a fantastic lab with, of course, everything. We already know what's coming in, but you again check it upon entry into the winery, all the parameters that need to be checked. And at that point, before again the grape coming, what is this going to be used for? The best grape is left for the best, let's say, top of the range wines. Let's say the wine that might have suffered, the grape that might have suffered in transport or somehow, will be used for more basic wine, fresh wines that are drunk young and they don't need to develop any defects later, let's say. So there's selection already in a vineyard. There's a selection or control upon the entry to the winery, from weight to sugar, etc., etc. And then there is a selection table, vibrating selection table, and it's again our colleagues look through and this is actually a really fun part. I love to do this as well. We all get out there and select the berries. We move away, maybe unhealthy ones or damaged ones or the leaves or whatever. So that goes into, then the whole cycle. I mean, I don't know how. And so there's selection like that, but there's also entrance of grape into, from a truck, let's say bulk entry. Although, of course, the weight is checked, again, the sugar, what's coming in. And this goes already in a different area. This doesn't get selected manually, but there's some controls, and then it gets already the branches are moved from the berries, and that goes for different, let's say, different winemaking or different product. But the main selection, we know what's coming. We know it from the field, So the enologist checks we have an agronomer. So they check the vineyards before the receiving of the grape, and we know what's going where and where to move your people to do the work. And the harvest is very intensive time. It's when the winery is alive and everybody hands on deck. The smell of the winery in harvest. Yeah.
Then the fermentation is made in steel tanks.
Yes, steel tanks. Well, it depends. I mean, we've done there are a couple of very curious projects, depending on what the winemaker wants to do, but partial fermentation has been done also in barrels, and we have French barrels, we have Armenian, Caucasian so-called barrels from Artsakh, and then you blend it for a final product. If you want a more, as you know, more complex flavor to your wine, or structure more than flavor, then you can do this. But this is only part of the wine. Mainly it's stainless steel. Most actually, but 99% it's stainless steel. And no, the winery is top of the line, modern winery with the latest equipment. So the clean, how important it is for the first important rule for a winery is cleanliness. So to make clean wines, to demonstrate the purity of the grape, you need it to be really spanking clean, and this is what the modern equipment allows you to do. And so this was I mean, there's a lot to be said for the, let's say, the ancient methods, etc., but most of these wines were faulty. We are very sophisticated now. It's nice to now, there's a lot of fashion with these amphora wines, let's say orange wines, and I think it's fantastic. I think the more the merrier. Let's have all the variety out there. Let the consumer choose what they want and try, and at least taste it. But I think the purity of the grape is the most important in the wine, and the modern equipment or the modern enology allows for this,
and aging
in general, especially if you're talking about some important volume. And Armenia Wine Company is the biggest producer in Armenia, and we have the capacity for 5 million bottles of wine. So it's you have to be able to control this homogeneity, let's say, the quality of all the production, not just, let's say, as lot 1 or lot B.
And it's capacity or total production? You didn't.
No, it's volume capacity. I mean, of course, we can produce more if we can sell more. It's a challenging feat. Nobody's out there sitting in the world and saying, "Oh, I want to buy some Armenian wine." They don't even know where Armenia is. So we have a lot of education to do, and especially because you have the $2, chuck or whatever, we would never be able, or the 1 liter tetra for pennies or whatever. You sometimes wonder. You get bottled wine. You're like, listen, the cork costs more, or the bottle, the glass. How do they do this? It's magic. So, of course, you have to do a lot of education. And, of course, this is not for everybody, because even the most inexpensive wine, let's say the basic wine in Europe, because also of not only the cost of production or the rarity of grape, but because of logistical. We are landlocked country with no access to sea. We have to go through not very amicable countries to move our, at the moment, it's only one country. It goes through Georgia. And part of the road is blocked for the winter months. It's let's say Lars. There's a mountain pass that our trucks have to go. And I remember every year at Christmas time, it's a tragedy, because this is your high selling time when you sell your wines until November for Christmas period, New Year's period, and the road would be blocked, and we couldn't get our trucks out. Not to speak of the humanitarian drama of these lorry drivers stuck on the mountain pass, without any sort of facilities, and we couldn't do anything because it's not our territory. It's going through another territory.
Yeah. Well,
we can't go through Iran, because Iran is a Muslim country. Azerbaijan and, of course, Turkey, we don't have borders with. Our borders are closed. So this is a logistical nightmare for any producer. And imagine wine such a, again. So, I mean, even for logistics, let's say the basic wine getting to Europe would cost not less than €7, And for €7 in Europe, I mean, in Spain, you get amazing wines, incredible wines. I want to cry every time in Spain. The wine is so inexpensive, and you have an incredible value. Which makes me angry is the curve is getting they're not drinking wine in Spain, less and less, per capita.
I think a pity. We will recuperate again. It will come back little by little.
Yeah.
Just a couple of generations have lost this custom.
Yeah.
And talking about
Yeah.
the finalization of the wine, which kind of aging you do? And what is
Okay,
the
depending on the range, yes.
winery?
Okay, so the moment, let's say there's 4 ranges of wine we make. There's the basic young, fresh, juicy, easygoing, drinkable wines that you can just, have with tapas, or, just a glass without with anything, just really vino joven. And that's the biggest volume of production. So that is not aged in, that's not aged at all. Then we have and this range is called Armenia, or there's a second range that's called Yerevan. Yerevan is the capital of Armenia.
Yeah.
So these are the 2 ranges that are basic, fresh, young wines. So from red to white, okay? And we spoke about Areni, about the white grape varietal that we use is Kangun, which is actually it's a cross between Chardonnay and Rakatsiteli, which is a Georgian, grape varietal. But we've had a really fantastic result with it, harvesting it earlier. So it's very fresh and it's still not overripe. It's not too ripe, so it gives a lot. It's very crispy, fantastic whites we get from this.
Acidity and greenness.
Yes. So, it's a very nice balance of freshness and fruitiness, and very easy, easy drinking. So, an indigenous varietal, white varietal, which is not a cross, it's an ancient varietal like Areni Noir, but again, there's too little of this varietal to make really Voske Hat, which Voski means golden, Hat means unit, so it's golden berries, I guess. There's also other varietals, both red and white, but I think to go into these obscure varietals for the international community is not so interesting. I think as a commercial person,
but the main ones, Areni and
Voske Hat. Areni is the name of also a village, a town, let's say an area, and Voske Hat is golden berry, let's say, for the white. I think it's very important commercially also to use the names that are at least pronounceable, because if, let's say, if it's this obscure, even Rakatsiteli, let's say, Georgian varietal, this is fantastic, but go try to sell that, in Idaho, for example. Not that Idaho, nothing against Idaho, but Idaho.
Yeah.
Or LA, okay, for example. But in LA, I'm sure they would.
So
anyway,
what is the proportion between young wines and aged wines in your winery?
In volume, you mean?
Yeah,
volume?
Percentage. How much percent?
Production volume.
Yeah.
Majority. Mostly it's young wine. Our main market right now is still Russia, although we're trying, and this is also because of course, the historical connection. It's our geographical, partner also, there's more trade. But we are in many countries already and trying to find ways to get out there. We're from Japan to China to America. We're present in France, in actually, in the Spanish interested wine aficionados can order from Belgium. Maybe we have partners to try some Armenian wines. But the production volume and export is mainly for Armenia Wine Company is the young wine range. So maybe about 70-80% is the basic range, which is fantastic quality price ratio. I'm always out of the more inexpensive range when it does well in competitions and because if you can do well the basic wine, it's easy to do let's say a cistern of a top wine which is hand-picked, prepared, and of course easier to control. But if you're doing a few million liters of a wine that has to be homogeneous, that has to, from first batch to last batch, have to maintain the same characteristics and and be of high quality. This is and give the quality, the value to the consumer. I think this is very important, also because it's your visiting card. No, you start with the more basic range.
Yeah.
And say, listen, I don't want to spend, I don't know, 40, 50 euros on a bottle of wine from Armenia. What's Armenia? Let me try this one. And I was very proud that we were recognized for with these wines in many international competitions.
Well, I was lucky to bring one bottle of your Takar, if I don't.
Yes.
Here.
Takar is fantastic.
I make with some friends before pandemia. We used to do tastings, like 10 people together and so on. Now we cannot do it, but we were used to do it. And I brought this bottle. I brought this bottle and we tasted among others. And was the surprise.
Was it the white or the red? I don't remember.
The red. And,
the red, yes.
And was the surprise of the night. Everybody was surprised about the taste and aromas of the wine. So congratulations in this sense.
Thank you. Well, I mean, we're very proud of it. We're very proud of our work, and I mean, doesn't mean because you really have it's a labor of love from the owners who really have invested an incredible amount, not only money but effort and energy to doing a project like this that is not going to pay off for generations. And this is really an investment in your homeland. And it's a project of education, of giving employment. Armenia Wine Company is the biggest employer in the agricultural sector. And I don't mean only for our own staff, but I mean the work that we give to farmers, to transporters, to all the world. When you produce something, you give work to a lot of other people. And Armenia is a country in crisis, really an economic crisis, and well now. It's a difficult time. So work is very important. You need to be strong economically, and this is again starting from scratch. So it's very important to be able to give this work from farmer to let's say the designer of labels or the printing house.
Well, and you also do sparkling wine, right?
Yes, so Takar is the middle range. Sorry, it's just I talk too much sometimes, Gabi. You have to interrupt me. Takar is the middle range. Takar means barrel in Armenian. It's another word, like barrel is Takar. So these are Takar, Takar, and these wines are aged in barrels depending on the what we find to be necessary for the wine to be well-rounded, more structured, more age-worthy, from 6 months to 12 months. And then there is Tariri, which is our top range, which is a very, unique production. Tariri was, anyway, there's another legend there. You can look it up. It's also interesting. Tariri is our top range. Again, really lovely wines, more complex, more nuanced, showing the elegance really of the terroir and of the grape. And then we do also sparkling wine, Charmat method. From the Cancun grape, we have an Italian consultant, specialist in sparkling wine. And as you know, secondary fermentation in tanks, stainless steel tanks. And Cancun is fantastic again for this, as I explained. Being harvested a bit earlier, it gives more freshness, more acidity, more citrusy flavors. It's a lovely, lovely, bubbly wine that it's fantastic.
The method is the same as Prosecco, no?
Yeah, Charmat method, not traditional in fermentation of bottle, but in tanks, yes. Like, no, I'm trying to think. In Spain, they're not, maybe there's some producers, but
Okay, maybe time flies.
Yes. Qué pena. We can talk forever. I can already have a glass of bubbly.
And there is
glass of Takar Charmat.
And there is a long time we don't see each other, so
It's been too long, really. Hopefully soon. Hopefully this situation ends and we can all join our friends and colleagues and family with some wine. And good food and good music.
Talking about this, I have the last two questions. One is your favorite grape. Which is your favorite grape?
My favorite grape. Well, yeah, difficult question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also, Gabi, it depends. International, let's stick to Armenian. Let's say Areni is my favorite grape. Okay. So everybody get out there and find Areni. It's a very noble grape. It's just, very lovely. Red grape varietal that grows in this highlands of Vajocur. A rare varietal, but very elegant. Some say it's similar in structure to Pinot Noir. So if you like Pinot Noir, you would love Areni.
A little bit reminds, yes.
Yeah.
The really last one is to make a pairing, a match of wine. Which wine you will drink with?
This is also very
song to listen with this one.
Oh my God, Gabi, that's like another, I don't know, 10 programs. I think, music and wine is like a topic I think everybody does. Well, again, since we are speaking about Armenian wines, I will stick to the theme. I mean, I love music. I have classical background, but let's say I'd like to have a glass of Dakar Areni, the Dakar Red, and listen to Charles Aznavour, another fellow Armenian. Let's say La Bohème, for example.
La Bohème.
Okay, for example. He's our ambassador of goodwill to the world, and wishing everybody a safe and happy, New Year, since we are still in January, and God willing, we will all overcome this difficult time in our lives with some good wine and some good music. It sure helps.
With this song, we will say goodbye to the audience today. We will close the program. Thank you so much for being here, and it has been a very big pleasure.
Thank you so much, Gabi, for asking me. I'm sorry if I rambled too much or I didn't. We can, you can revisit and re-edit, but we haven't spoken for a few years, so it's lovely to see you and hear you, and I think it's a great idea to talk about wine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, big hug.
Okay.
Ciao, bye. Adios. Adios.
Well, friends, I hope you have enjoyed and learned something about Armenia and the history of the wine. It's really the beginning of the story, the history of the wine. So for me, it was important. And be happy, drink good wine, and enjoy life. See you. Talk to you. Bye-bye.